Hey everybody, and welcome back to Empty Pockets Ironworks. For this week's video series, I'm going to be demonstrating how I create the calla lily. This is a simple yet beautiful flower. It gathers a lot of attention and makes a great gift for a loved one. This one in particular is made from 3/8 inch round stock, hot rolled, and 14 gauge plate steel. All of the material that I'm using for this video today is scrap materials from my shop. Simple tools: if you have access to a plasma, you can use that to cut out the template, or you can do like I did the first one and cut it out with an angle grinder. This calla lily in particular is special. This one will actually be given away to some lucky winner, and to enter, all that you're going to have to do is like our Facebook page and share the video through Facebook. We'll keep track of each of them. And the first farm and art market that we have at Wilson Park in Arkansas City, Kansas, on the first Tuesday show of July, or first farm and art market show in July, we will draw one of those names there. And I haven't quite decided if we're going to do a live video or not. Oftentimes we record it, and I've given away flowers and different things in the past. It's just something that we like to do. It not only gathers attention to the page, but sometimes it gives people an opportunity to own a piece of your art that may not have been able to. And not that these are outright crazy expensive, but everything that we do is an impulse buy. Unless it's purpose made for a gift, or somebody specifically requests something, or they just come to your site with the mindset that they're going to buy something for a loved one. Nobody just walks up at the farm and art market with, the intent to specifically buy something, or at least it doesn't happen very often. So, as a blacksmith, as an artist, I know that everything is an impulse buy. And so this is a way for us to get our art out there, and it's a way for me to kind of give back to all of you that have taken the time to like our videos, to watch the videos, and to like and subscribe to our page. So for that, thank you. Now back to what we're doing here. You can see that the bar length is actually twice the length of the calla lily itself, and or the bloom, I should say. And I heat the rod up and I taper the end of it. And here momentarily you're going to see I'm going to add some detail using the crosspeen section of the hammer. And all that is for is just to give it more of an organic look so that it looks more natural. I will buff that on the grinder just to kind of make certain points of it stand out. But eventually it'll all go back into the forge for the final shaping. So I'm going to let the video play for a little bit. I'm going to quit talking, and I'll chime back in later and go over some more details. Alright, here you can see the majestic forge. I'll slide the brick out of the way here, and we're going to put the bloom inside the forge. I always try to center it directly underneath the flame. This is a 2-burner pass-through style forge, and I'm only running one side, so I've got the other side actually bricked up. Using the other anvil, not the Peter Wright this time, I'm using a 100-pound anvil that has a little bit deeper step on the front of it. And of course the more rounded blunt horn. Whoops, there went the hammer. Anybody that's done any sort of metal work knows that hammers never stay where you want them to, and there's a good reason why you wear steel toes. So after you've kind of got it started, as far as the bend, you can hit it from either side and start rolling the material over. And essentially, whoops, there you go, dropped it again. I should have edited that out, but you know, it wouldn't be real if I did. So after you've got it hot again and picked up off the floor, and you make sure that you didn't burn the shop down, you're going to continue forming it, and essentially what you're doing is you're just creating a funnel. I kind of tend to hit more towards the back, try to rotate one side down, and kind of like rolling a burrito shell, you're going to tuck it in. Now momentarily you will see it'll dart under the side, and just keep working it back and forth. There's really no right or wrong way to do this. As long as you're holding it at one end and you're not smacking it real hard in the center, it should form, and it should form fairly easy. If your hole is oblonged, hit it on the opposite side. And now the thing that you do want to do here, though, I've done enough of these that I can kind of judge offhand how big the hole needs to be for the size of rod that I'm using. You want it close, you don't want it too loose, but you also don't want it too tight. First couple that I did, all ends of the spectrum, either too tight, too loose. I fought them for a while, and with anything, practice. Now, I'm obviously not wanting to quench the material because we're going to be working with it again, so just slowly cool it off so that you can take it elsewhere in the shop. Here is that center part that we beveled down earlier. I'm just kind of shaping up the end of it, and then I'm more or less just scratching the detail on the outside of it. After we had used the cross-peen hammer on it to add detail, that just kind of buffs out the ends. There you can kind of see it. Now here, this is just a demonstration. Normally I skip this step, but for video purposes I'm going to insert the rod, see where I want to place it. Typically you kind of want it even with the top rounded crest on each side where they come up. There's, I suppose if you was to lay a level across it, that's kind of where you wanted it to go. But again, it's art. There's really no right or wrong way to do it. If it looks good to you, that's where you should put it. So now during this process here, I'm using a Lincoln Electric Pro MIG 180. It's a 220 unit. It's a little hot for some sheet metal work, even turned down, but it's a fantastic welder. It's new to the shop. My old Century welder finally died. With that, any type of welder, you don't want to go crazy on it. I'm fortunate that I have a decent enough welder, but in all honesty, you can do this with a stick welder. If you really had to, you could do it with an oxyacetylene torch. So whatever you have available that you are able to weld with, use what you got. Now with the little plasma here, you can see I've just kind of made a little wavy line. This is actually going to be the leaf that extends off the side of the flower. And typically with calla lilies, they kind of come up to a point. They're long. As far as size, just do what looks best to you. I usually run it about 3/4 the length, and then I put a real sharp kind of arcing bend into it. And here we are again on the 100-pound anvil. I'm going to be trying to put a bend in this material here, and again I'm doing it cold. There's probably a better way to do this, but for that thin a material, this is the easiest way that I've found. And very much like the calla lily bloom earlier, you're going to get it to kind of start folding, and then you're just going to continue working it around. And your size itself is really just over the size of your material for your rod. All you're going to be doing is welding it on there. Now here you can see I'm just adding part of the bend to it. This is 14 gauge material, so it bends relatively easily. No use, or no reason to use heat again in this step. And if you don't have access to a forge or even an acetylene torch, if you use a lighter gauge material instead of 14 gauge, the calla lily itself can be formed out relatively easily. you could bend 1 out of 20 gauge probably by hand, and not to mention you could cut it out with snips instead of using a plasma. So after you've got that situated and where you want it, go ahead and grind down your weld from earlier, or depending on how the weld looks and how it meshes with the bloom itself, you may not have to grind it down. I like to do it just because I like for everything to look organic and everything to flow. So after this sequence here, you'll see that we're going to weld on the little leaf petal flute that we created earlier. And this is getting close to being done. The flower itself is going to go back into the forge so that I can add all the detail work to the top bloom. So here you can see with the open end of the flower, we're putting it back into the forge, and we're going to heat it up nice and hot so that we can start adding the details to the outside of the bloom. I use a larger set of needle nose pliers for this. You can use a various array of different tooling. Basically anything that you got. Pliers, needle nose, forceps, anything. And there's really no right or wrong way to do this. I just kind of add whatever looks good to me. For most of the flowers that I do, I study the flowers, or at least looked at likenesses online to get kind of an idea of how they flow, the different shapes that they have. Here you can see it's got kind of a pie crust look to the outside of it, I guess. But it works, and it's organically it looks nice. And that's what you're going towards. If you're going to give this to somebody as a gift, you want it to look realistic, or at least I would think that you'd want it to look realistic. Now the next step here that we're going to come up on is we're going to be using the horn of that anvil, the Peter Wright anvil there, and using the opposite end of a vertical peen or straight peen hammer, we're going to be adding just a little bit of detail work to the leaf. And again, this you could have done earlier. You can do this at any time during the production of your flower. I just choose to do it at this time. It also gives me kind of a good excuse to use the horn of the anvil to reshape the leaf itself. And other than a bit of cleanup work, which you're going to see here using a flap disc, this is a 80 grit flap disc that's been worn down, so it's probably more of around 120. Maybe even 200. Clean it up, and then I use a wire wheel, and then that's pretty much it, other than I like to clear coat everything. Typically I use a quick dry clear coat aerosol. It typically takes about 10 minutes to dry to the touch, and I'll do 2 or 3 coats of that in front of a fan out in the shop. And it looks really nice, and it really changes the look of the material itself. It gives everything a darker, shiny look. So check that out, and we're almost done. So there you have it, folks. Please like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/EP Ironworks. And as always, most importantly, thank you for taking the time to watch our video. We greatly appreciate all the support that we've gotten. Last week, my wife actually made a post on our Facebook page requesting people like and share the page, and we garnered over 200 likes in the span of 24 hours, which is phenomenal. And it kind of put me in the mindset of maybe doing another giveaway. So if you like this calla lily, if you'd like to have a chance to own it yourself, go to our Facebook page, like the page, and subscribe to our channel here. Share the video in the provided link that will be on Facebook, and get your name in there. Maybe you'll win. We'll be shipping you a flower. Again, thank you all. See you next time.